right, good afternoon. Thank y'all for sticking it out till the Saturday afternoon session. Appreciate you being here, and thank you, Kale. Appreciate that PhD you just gave me, honorary degree. I'm here to talk to you about the MyIPM app. Has anybody heard of the MyIPM app in any crops besides the collaborators in the back? So this has been around for fruit and, as you can see on my, well, that's kind of small, but those are at the top, a few of the different MyIPM apps. The fruit app has been around for a while, and there's a row crop as well. And now we have a vegetable version. And the reason for this, the group, if you guys are familiar with the Southeast Vegetable Handbook, the group of specialists and agents that review and put this together every year have been saying for years we need this in a mobile version for those of us who like to use our phones in the field or our tablets. And it just so happens that this just got launched this winter, and it's very timely because this book did not get published or printed this year. So if you are used to relying on this being on your dashboard, it's most likely not going to be on your dashboard this year unless your state comes up with some little extra grant money here or there. We will not be printing the several thousand copies for all the southeastern states. Budgets have tightened, sponsors' budgets have tightened, printing costs have gone way up. So this did not get printed this year. We are still looking for a publisher, trying to get that worked out for the 2025 copy. But it will be online. There will be a digital version that has everything that's in the handbook will be there. Now, so the app, like I say, is very timely that was released this year. It will only have, I'll go ahead and open this up. It'll only have cucurbits and tomato for right now. With the grant funding that we had this first round, those are the crops that we were able to put in. There is a plan and a hope for future grant funding and project leaders to add more vegetables. Of course, that's why we have broccoli and corn. You see that on the app logo there because there is the hope to continue to add more vegetable crops to this app. Now, if you have, let's see, the first time you download this, you'll see the options of what you want to select. So if you don't grow tomatoes and you don't want to download that and take up space on your phone, that's fine. You can just do cucurbit or vice versa. And the great thing about this app is anytime a specialist goes in and updates the chemical information or what have you, it's going to push to your phone and you open it and it'll tell you that update's available, and you can choose to download that if you have internet access, and if you don't, then you can do it later. And the great thing about it is once you get it downloaded on your phone, you don't need internet access to pull this up. So when you're in the field and you see a problem on your crop, then you can pull it up. What I really like to do is flip through the pictures, and I'm going to show you some of that. And I see Rebecca standing in the back holding this document. She may pass out a few. This is a really nice how-to guide. So if you're not really tech savvy or this app is just really new for you, they've printed these really good multi-page how-to guides. This will also go on our website that I'll show you at the end. But this will walk you through basically everything I'm going to talk about today. And it's really nice. I've never had a how-to guide for an app, but this really shows you step by step the different things that you can do with the app, because it has a lot of information for it. So these are on the back table and she's passing them out. We also have postcards on the back table that'll just help you download the app if you're not familiar with going to the App Store. So let me go ahead and jump into this. We have, like I said, cucurbits and tomatoes are the only crops that are in here now, and you can look at both disease information and insect information. So once you tap on it, the diseases are listed in alphabetical order. And what I like to do when I'm in the field, I used to use this a lot for the fruit app, the strawberry app, and I love this because it has the pictures. You can go in that handbook, and it has a lot of good information, but it doesn't have any pictures. You can go home and get on your computer and search the internet for problems in your crop, but you can get a lot of pictures that say they're a certain thing, and if you're not on a reputable website, you may be calling this gummy stem blight and it's actually anthracnose. So the really nice thing about the app is it's put together by your university specialist, and you know when that picture is there that that's exactly what you're dealing with. It doesn't mean that identification is foolproof at that point, of course. A lot of our watermelon leaf spots, for example, one can look much like the other, but you know when that picture says that's anthracnose, that is truly what you're looking at for that picture. So if you tap on it, you can go into a lot more information, and down at the bottom you will see gallery, summary, gallery, and more. So we're here at the summary of anthracnose, for example, and it's really nice because this, you also don't get in the handbook an overview of the disease, the symptoms, and the damage that you might see. And just a little, it's kind of like talking to your extension agent. It doesn't replace your good extension agent, but it kind of gives you a little, fluffs it out a little more. It gives you more detail to try to figure out, is this what I'm dealing with? Or maybe the weather patterns aren't right, so this is probably not it. Let me look at another one. But if you go to the bottom and click on Gallery, then there'll be a variety of pictures. And yes, those are small, but just like if you were looking at photos on your phone, you can tap on them and you can just use your fingers and pinch and enlarge just like you would photos on your phone. So that's really nice. You can't swipe from one to the next. You have to click on them individually, but that's not a big deal. But it's really nice that you can kind of zoom in and look at the details there. And if you're more scientific and like to get your hand lens or your microscope out, several of these also have images of the spore structures that you might see with particular diseases. Again, if you go there at the bottom, if you click on More, now they have the scientific name for the disease, and that may not mean a lot to you up top, but when you click on that or when you tap on it with your finger, you get even more details about the symptoms and signs that you might see. The disease cycle, again, that's where I was saying that could be really helpful to look at like temperature information or rainfall, and that might tell you that, oh, I'm not dealing with this now, it must be something else because the weather's not quite right for this disease to appear. So there's useful information there. And then you can go into each one of these listings here, you can tap on and get more information. I'll show you what I really like to use. I'm just going to back out, and on this main menu, other than going into the gallery and looking at the pictures, the chemical control section from here is what I really like, and that gives you basically the charts that you get in the handbook. And you can search it two ways. So you can go by the trade name, which is going to be like your Quadris or your Proline, your Ranman, the things that sales name that you're familiar with. But as you know, we have so many generic products nowadays. Some of those are in the app, but not everything. So if you click on active ingredient, sometimes it's easier to look it up that way. It just depends on what you have. But I'm going to click on trade name, for example, and this whole first column will be everything that has efficacy for that particular disease, or that may have it on the label. And so you can scroll up and down. And when it first comes up, they're in alphabetical order, so that's really nice because some of these names are hard, but they'll be sorted that way originally. And then the active ingredient is listed if that helps you. Now what I'm going to just do is from this column, I can just scroll over. And then you get tons more of helpful information like the FRAC code or the mode of action group. If you're trying to rotate, if you've been using a lot of class 3s and you need to switch to something else, this is helpful. And each one of these headings that I'm going to scroll past, the efficacy, more pluses means better, right? That's better efficacy for those products. Each one of these columns, if you tap it at the top where the title is, like FRAC code, or if you tap on efficacy, it will sort it by that column. So it's no longer in alphabetical order, but it's sorted by FRAC code. So that may really help me. Like I said, if I'm looking at, if I've used Cabrio, and that's a class 11, and I've used it twice, and I need to switch classes for this particular disease, let me make sure I don't go with Quadris, for example. And then, like I said, you can, let me tap at the top of efficacy, and then that sorts. So you don't have to look up and down. Up and down is like, well, that was a 1+ and that was a 2+, but where was that one I was looking at? So now it's really nice, and you can sort it from best to worst or vice versa. It also has the rate per acre in there, your pre-harvest days. That can be really helpful. A lot of times I get that call from the grower that, you know, we're harvesting on Saturday. I need something with a short REI. What are my options? And here they can look at it for themselves as well. Or PHI and REI are both in there. Now, I will say the rate is in here, but that can get kind of complicated because, you know, on a chemical label, it may have more than one disease listed and more than one rate range. And we're all subject to human error, right? There could be a typo. Most likely there's not. But I say all that to say the label is still the law. You've probably heard that for many years. Even in our handbook, there can be a typo. And if you spray by that, it is your responsibility as a grower or farm manager to check the label of the product that you're using and make sure you're using it according to the label. If you ever had a pesticide inspection or whatever, that is what you would be held to. So just double check that. I don't really go to the app for rate information. I mean, you can, it'll get you in the ballpark if you're trying to think about, well, how much do I need to order of this product, you know, based on the acreage that I have. What I really like is just looking at the list of products, the efficacy, the different mode of action groups, because a lot of our products, as you know now, are combination products. So if you're trying to switch away from a 3, but this one's a 3 and a 7, this one's a 3 and a 9, those types of things in the app I think are really helpful. And like I say, they're in the book too. Of course, it's better than the book in that you can sort it and put it in numerical order or what have you. I think that's a really neat resource. Also, if you notice at the top, if you're an organic grower or if you're looking for a non-conventional option, you have those 2 bars at the top, and if you click, you can click on one or the other. So I'll click on organic, and you'll see the options there, and it has those same columns of information listed. So that's really nice about this app, that those are right there together. And then I'll show you as well some of the insect. And our specialist did a really good job of putting in some of these pictures where they have labeled, and this is too small for you to see up here, but when you get it on your phone or your tablet, you'll be able to see it better, where they have talked about the life stage or perhaps, you know, if there's a beneficial or something there that helps you understand, like maybe I don't need to spray for aphids because the beneficials are clearly taking care of this population. And then, of course, some of the symptoms and that they can cause, just like with the diseases. Does anybody have any questions so far? Now, if you want to download this, and you either on the IPM guide, the how-to guide on the front, there's a QR code, and then on the postcards in the back, there's a QR code. They take you to the website, and I think I can show you that. If I have enough signal. Well, it worked outside every time I did it. So now that I'm standing before you, it doesn't want to work. But it'll take you to the website. It's not coming up for me, but and when you go on that website, if you scroll all the way down, it'll give you a link to click to download, whether you have an Android or an iPhone. Now, if you're tech savvy, you'll just go to your app store and type in MyIPM vegetables. I'll warn you, if you go to the QR code and you go to the website, it works good for Android right now. With iPhone, there's a little bit of a hiccup. It's going to take you to the Field Crop app. But like I say, just go to your app store, type in MyIPM vegetables, and it is ready to go. I also want to acknowledge the Southern IPM Center is where the grant funding came for this project, for this round, which was supported by USDA NIFA as well. And like I said, the plan is to add more vegetables to this app, and maybe even Lorena suggested the idea, you know, could we put some cultural things in there like nutritional disorders. If you go in the fruit app, they do have weeds and beneficial insects, so that may be an app you would like to look at as well. But more grant funding and project leaders are needed for that. Did I miss anything? Oh yes, the search feature. That's my favorite thing. Thank you, Rebecca. All right, so on the very first page, you see at the top, there is a search bar. So sometimes I'll get a call from a grower that says, well, I have some Quadris left, and it's getting kind of old, and I feel like I need to use it. What can I use it on? You can go in here and type in your chemical, and you'll see it quickly brings up the different versions of Quadris. Quadris Opry, Quadris Top. So whatever you have, you can select for that, or if you just have the regular. And when you click on that, it's going to bring up the list of everything that's plugged into this app that chemical is listed for, and you'll see that it already has, it's like a quick cheat sheet. It's got the crop, the diseases where it's listed, the efficacy, and the rate. And then you can click into it further from there, and it actually, you see how it's like blinking, highlighting, so you can see it and compare it to the other options. But I really like that. That also works good, that search feature, if you just have the generic product or the active ingredient name. You could also type in azoxystrobin, and then you can see just plain azoxystrobin by itself or in some of the combination products that it's in. One more thing that reminded me of, Rebecca, when you go into the disease, when I'm in a field and I'm confused about something that I'm seeing, I'll just swipe through and look at all the different things. And I'm like, oh, well, maybe that's it. And then I can go into the gallery and look further. The other thing is if you kind of know what you're looking for, instead of having to swipe through everything, right at the top there's a select feature. And if you tap that, it just gives you a quick list. So if you know what you want to go to, you can use that. And that also works, that select feature, if you're in the chemical section. Maybe I should go into not a virus. All right, if you go into the chemical selection, and let's say you've picked out a particular thing, and you say, all right, well, I know it'll do this good on this disease, but let me switch over to one of the other diseases, like think if you have like downy mildew and phytophthora, and you say, okay, well, I'm going to do Randman. How's that going to hold up for my downy mildew? How's it going to do for my phytophthora? So if you use that select feature, once you're in the chemical table, it goes straight to the chemical table for that other disease that you select. Any questions now? Hopefully I haven't totally overwhelmed you. There's a ton of information in here, and once you get used to just kind of toggling through it, it gets a lot better. But like I say, I love it for the pictures and the short list of efficacy and how you can sort it. And don't forget, like this guide that she just handed you basically goes through everything that I just talked about. So that's all I have. Sorry? Oh, Rebecca thinks of everything. Some of the, if you see at the bottom here, some of them even have audio. I didn't hook to audio. I'm not going to play it for you now, but you see down here, there's a little play button. If you hit that, some of the specialists have also included a short, maybe 1 to 3 minute additional information on top of everything that's already in there. So you can learn just about anything you want to learn about each of these pest or diseases within that app. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Aaron. Any questions for her? Up next, we have Dr. Angelos Deltsitas from the University of Georgia, and he's going to give us a post-harvest vegetable update.
Hey, everyone. I'm Angelos Deltsitas. I work at UGA Tifton, and my area of expertise is post-harvest physiology. So I'll be talking to you guys about some major Georgia vegetables, and I'll give you some research we've done in the past, both at UGA and in other institutions, and I'll talk to you about suggestions for storage and handling. I'm going to start with what we call the mature fruit vegetables, which is tomatoes and peppers, as well as chili peppers. For these vegetables, it's important to mention that maturity at harvest is very important for the quality after harvest and during storage. These are chilling sensitive crops, which means they can be stored at a low temperature, but not too low of a temperature, because at temperatures below 50 to 55 Fahrenheit, they start to show chilling injury. Ethylene, which is a plant hormone, can control the ripening, and they have moderate respiration rates, which means that they can be stored for quite some time. For tomato, I'm going to show you here the suggestions. The temperatures of storage should be above 45 Fahrenheit. People go below that, but luckily not anymore as much as in the past. But you can do 3 to 5 days at 44 to 50 without issues when they're firm ripe. But when they're green, you want to go higher than that. Relative humidity, it's important to keep a high relative humidity to reduce water loss. You want to be somewhere in the range of 90 to 95%. And as I mentioned, chilling injury is usually a combination of the storage temperature and the duration of storage. It's been shown that storing tomatoes at 50 Fahrenheit for more than 2 weeks can cause chilling injury, whereas 41 Fahrenheit for more than 6 to 8 days can also cause the chilling injury effects. On the right here, you see what chilling injury looks like. We have tomatoes stored for 2 weeks at a range of different temperatures from 32 all the way to 86, which is too high, obviously. So you see here, I don't know if the color is good enough, but from 32 to 41, you have an inhibition of ripening, and then 50, 59, and 68 are within the range of acceptable. Actually, these two are the ideal ones. The higher temperature here also inhibited the accumulation of the red color development. Some other considerations for tomatoes: you want to ensure rapid cooling. It's done usually with forced air cooling. We usually go down to 55 in the pre-cooling process, and as I mentioned, forced air cooling is the most appropriate practice. Some pictures of what inappropriate temperature of storage can cause to tomatoes. Here you see tomatoes after storing them for 10 days at 41 Fahrenheit. You have infection, and the chilling injury allows for these infections to grow mold, and you see them here also in the box. You can use low oxygen and 1 MCP to retard ripening, but it's not used commercially, as well as high CO2, which can be damaging if it goes too high. For grape tomatoes, which are not very popular in our region, these are very susceptible to water loss. So we use clamshells to retard water loss at the higher temperatures. Here's some work done a few years ago that shows the effect of low temperature on tomatoes. You have a range of temperatures from 41 to 55 Fahrenheit, and here you have on the x-axis the days of storage. On the Y, you see the color score. The higher the value, the more red the tomato. So here's how the color progressed over time during storage. And then what they did, they transferred tomatoes at ambient conditions and let them ripen after harvest. So what they did, it gets a little crowded, but they showed that if you store tomatoes for a long time at a low temperature, and then even if you remove them and you put them at an ambient temperature, they will not ripen to a full red color because of the chilling injury effect. So the 41 and 45 never ripened, whereas the 50 and 55 were fully red after 24 days of storage. Moving on to bell peppers. Again, another chilling sensitive crop. The range of temperatures is 41 to 50, with 45 Fahrenheit being the ideal one. Its shelf life is about 2 to 3 weeks. And again, we need high relative humidity to reduce water loss. If we have a very high relative humidity, we might induce superficial decay on stems. And you want to avoid, in general, condensation that favors this bacterial decay. Chilling injury happens at 50 degrees Fahrenheit for longer than 2 weeks and 41 for more than 6 to 8 days. Again, forced air cooling is the ideal way of cooling it down for 2 to 3 weeks of shelf life, and you can use low oxygen to retard color change. On the bottom right here, you see the effects of chilling injury. You can tell here the pitting on the skin that happens after storing them for some time. Water loss is a problem that is because of high temperature of storage and low relative humidity. It's a cumulative effect, and it's translated into a loss of weight, of saleable weight, loss of fresh appearance, and loss of texture. In general, we say that if you have less than 3% water loss, there's no effect on visually or in the texture of the fruit. Between 3 and 5%, the visual quality is affected. Above 5%, you have extreme shriveling, and the fruit is not saleable anymore. For peppers that are red colored peppers, you want to harvest at 80 to 90% coloration, and then the color will continue to change after harvest. In general, over-fertilization and over-irrigation will lead to high water content, which is not good. And there's a lot of variability based on the pre-harvest conditions and the cultivar. And in general, the softening we see is usually a combination of water loss as well as the physiological changes in the cell walls. Moving on to summer squash. Summer squash is again a chilling sensitive crop. 41 to 50 Fahrenheit is the ideal temperature of storage, a relative humidity of 95%. Ethylene, which I mentioned earlier, can affect the summer squash quite seriously sometimes. In general, you want low levels, the lower the better, because they induce softening and yellowing of green types that we don't want. For the chilling injury sensitivity, storing below 41 for more than 3 to 4 days will cause what you see here on the right. The longer you store them and the lower the temperature, the more of the pitting and the sunken areas that you have and discoloration. Skip that. Here are typical pictures I get, and these are usually mechanical injuries, issues that happen after harvest during the packing or during the shipping of the product. Then you have some wounds that are trying to heal, and you have also internal injury that often is not visible from the outside. Sweet corn, I'm not going to talk much about it. Again, you want to go very low here. You have a non-sensitive crop, a non-chilling sensitive crop that has a low shelf life. So you want to go at 32 Fahrenheit, which is the optimum. 31 is freezing, so you want to make sure you don't go too low. The high relative humidity is important, and you have a short life here, shelf life, 8 to 12 days at best for the super sweet varieties. Cooling is important because of the short shelf life. Hydrocooling, impact with ice if possible, is suggested. Here I'm going to show you how the sweetness, the sucrose levels drop based on the temperature of storage. If you store it at 32, for 4 days you lose about 20%. If you store it at 50, you lose 60%. And if you store it at higher temperatures, you lose about 70 to 80% of your sugars in 4 days. Cooling, on the right here, you see the percent of cooling in minutes and how it goes down. You need about 2 hours in ideal conditions in created sweet corn. Switching gears to broccoli, again, another very sensitive crop. It's very sensitive to ethylene, and it needs low temperature. Ideally, you want 32 Fahrenheit. The higher the temperature, the shorter the shelf life. High relative humidity, low to no ethylene because it is very sensitive. And what you see usually with high ethylene, you see yellowing and the opening of the florets. It should be cooled as quickly as possible with forced air cooling or hydrocooling. Icing is used in the West Coast very often. Here you see the effects of higher temperatures, how you have the florets opening and you have yellowing of the broccoli. I'm going to move on, skip this, because how much time do I have, Gail? 5 minutes? Okay. Cucumber is another crop that I get a lot of calls about. We have issues during storage because of chilling injury. Again, that's the typical thing that I see more often. 50 to 55 is a suggested temperature. If you go lower, as you see here, you have pitting, starting, softening, and then you have issues with water soaking and accelerated decay incidents. More pictures about the effects of higher temperatures, yellowing, as well as the ethylene. Low levels of ethylene will cause that. This is the most common issue I see. People send me this picture and they're like, what's happening? Then I go there, I check the ethylene levels and they're very high. They have ethylene producing crops nearby and they have ethylene affecting the quality of the cucumber. This shows the storage life of cucumber, how, if you store it in this range of 41 to 50, you get the longest shelf life. If you go too low or too high, you have a low shelf life. Green beans is another crop that is of interest. Again, chilling injury is the same issue. You have similar appearance on the beans. Below 41 Fahrenheit, you get these brown spots that you see here. But you have a short shelf life, so you want to keep it at that range. You don't want to go too high. I'm going to finish the talk with cabbage, which is another big crop in our region. This crop is more, can last much longer, so it's not as sensitive as green beans or tomatoes and whatnot. So you want to go low at 32 Fahrenheit, but you can cool it slower than the other crops because of how long it can last. You want a high relative humidity of 95%, but it has some benefit of having these leaves. Even if you lose water, you can remove the outer leaves and then you can still sell it. However, if you have ethylene, you get yellowing, and the longer the head stays in the ethylene, high ethylene room, the more yellow you will see, and then you get a non-saleable product. In general, ventilating the cold room is the best way of lowering the ethylene levels of the crop. As I mentioned, this can last up to 3 to 6 weeks, and some cultivars can last up to like months on end if they're stored appropriately. Physical damage is another thing I see often because people think they're like balls, so they throw them away, and they don't think that it's a live organism that you need to take care of. 2 minutes. Okay, I'm gonna skip that. So when you have a disorder, a post-harvest disorder, and you don't know what it could be, before reaching out to me, of course, you can do it anytime. Think about temperature. 9 out of 10 times is the temperature of storage. It could be too high, too low. If you see that's okay, then you go to relative humidity. The handling that you did after harvest or during harvest is important. The treatments, if you spray stuff to the product, sometimes you overdo it, sometimes you don't use enough wax and you have water loss. And then the pre-harvest conditions sometimes affect the quality of the product after harvest. So very often you see chilling injury and you're sure 100% you haven't put your product at a low temperature. It can happen even in the field. You can have chilled tomatoes because it was too cold for some reason in your area, and then you see the chilling injury effects after harvest. With that, I'd like to wrap up the talk. I'm going to be working, thanks to some funding we got this year from the Vegetable Commission, on some pitting disorder incidents in cucumbers and some softening in summer squash in this coming spring. With that, I'd like to thank you for your attention, and if we have time, I'll be happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Any questions for Dr. Deltsitas before we transition to our next speaker? Okay, thank you, Dr. Deltsitas. Up next, from the University of Georgia, we have Dr. Greg Fonza, and he will be giving us a vegetable economic update.
Thank you. Usually my colleagues let me talk about the topics that hurt. So I remember when Al Gore was running for president, he was talking about climate change, and he talked about the inconvenient truth. So my presentation is probably going to hurt some people's feelings or make you think bad about the industry, but just bear with me, I'm just an educator. I'm going to be talking about the world vegetable situation and outlook. I'm going to talk about the U.S. trade and trade balances. I'm going to talk about the vegetable price trend. I'm going to talk about the U.S. vegetable and pulse outlook, and I'm going to talk about vegetable demand and supply. I hope I'm going to have enough time. This is the global vegetable situation and outlook. In 2024, we are now in 2024, the vegetable value will be $1.08 trillion, $1.08 trillion. And we are expecting a 6.8% increase in the growth rate between 2024 to 2028. And again, still in this year, we're expecting that China will be the biggest person in the market, a country in the market, with $159 billion. And the same this year, the per capita consumption or expenditure, which means that the money that each person is going to be spending on vegetable will be $139 $0.20. We're talking about worldwide, not only U.S. We're talking about worldwide here. And then the total volume, or what we call here production, will be 649.2 billion kg. I translated it to 1431.2 billion pounds. You know, in the world, we always talk about metric system, but here we talk about pounds, so that's the conversion. And we're also expecting a 4.3% growth rate by next year. So that industry is going to grow by 4.3%. And at the same time, our expected consumption is also going to grow. It's at the moment, it's 159.8 pounds, which is equivalent to 72.5 kgs. Now you can see here, this is the World Vegetable Production Market and Trade. You can see that's 2024. It's 1.08 trillion dollars. That's the worth of the industry. So that is a really huge, huge industry. And then you see here, still 2024, the vegetable production trend. You see here we are looking at 1,239.4 billion pounds. That is expected worldwide, not U.S., worldwide. After this, I'm going to talk about U.S. So you can tell how huge that industry is. Same situation with the capital consumption. Per capita consumption means what each individual you're going to eat per year. So that worldwide stands at 307 pounds. Then when we talk about the online and offline trading, because since the COVID, the online trading came into the picture, into the vegetable industry, and it's been climbing so fast. This year, it has gone as far as 4.2%. It started from 2018. It was only about less than 1%, but look at how far it's going, and it keeps climbing. Then let's look at the per capita consumption. How much vegetable are we going to be eating, each individual around the world, not the U.S. We're going to talk about U.S. later on. This is around the world. We're looking at 131.6 pounds per person. Now, if you multiply that times the total number of people in the world, you know how much vegetable we really need. So that also tells you that this is a very huge industry. But the other question is, how do we tackle this industry? This is a result of a survey that was done by American Frozen Food Survey. They wanted to see the trend, how the market is going to go, how the industry is going to grow. And this result showed that 43% of the people there were 1,200 people who were interviewed, who were surveyed, said that they increased, 34% of them increased their frozen vegetable consumption by before the pre-pandemic times. That's 2020. 34%, that's a huge number. And then at the same time, they have a lot of worries, concerns about environmental impact and animal agriculture. They also have a lot of concerns about health and wellness issues. And everybody knows that vegetable is a source of protein, so consumption is expected to keep increasing, which means that we are in a good industry. Another challenge is that the organic vegetable is becoming very popular. So most people are beginning to switch into organic right now, so that makes it popular. And of course, I just talked about the online grocery, which is also becoming popular, so people don't even have to go to the shop. They just order it online and they deliver it at home. So now let's move to the U.S. This graph is the U.S. trade situation. And when we talk about U.S. trade, we're not talking about vegetables alone. We're talking about all the things that we use in agriculture, from heavy equipment and everything like that. And this is one area that we used to be very strong. You can see here from 1990 here, you can see that the yellow line here is import, what we import to the U.S., and then the green line is export. You can see we did very well for all these years. You see here, this is 2024. Things have changed drastically, and that is not too good. Because for the first time in 3 decades, to be very precise, 34 years, we actually dropped. See here? So that means that we brought in more things, agricultural products to the U.S. than we sent outside. So that makes it a negative trade balance, which is not good for the economy. Now, let's look at the agriculture again. If you see here, you see the red lines here are import and the blue line are export. And you can find out that the trade balance here is also getting bad. From 2014, it was pretty good, but now we started having negative balances. And right now, by 2024 or 2024 that we are now, we're expecting a $30.5 billion negative balance. That is not good. Okay, let's go now. The first one was the general agriculture, and now this one is vegetables. In the vegetable, we have the similar problem. The red ones are import, export, what we sell to other countries like Canada, Mexico, whatever. These are the red lines. And then the blue lines are what we actually brought in the U.S. We buy it from foreign countries and bring them here. You can see this is the balances. You can see that in the vegetable industry, we've always been on red. And the red is not getting better. Red means negative balances. We're not getting better. You can see that it's getting bad. And in 2024 here, we're looking at $12 billion negative. $12 billion. This is the U.S. export values per region. And I put this here because it's very important that we understand. This is East Asia. In 1997, they were only getting 21% from us. But by 2022, they are importing 68%. So this is a big market for us. All right? Now, look at here, East Asia. Let's keep North America. Look at East Asia. In 1997, they were only getting 3%, and now they're getting 15%. So that is also a good market for us, right? Now, let's keep and go all the way to the end. This is South Asia. They were getting 1%, and now they're getting, what, 5%. Now, if we put all these three together, it's equal to almost 89, 90%, right? Good. Now, let's come to North America. This is Canada. In 1997, we get only 12%, and now we're getting 57%, which is pretty good. All the other ones are all in growing markets, which are really good. But my question, the reason why I put that here is to show you this one. Look at, this is the shares, agricultural shares. Look at East Asia. This was 1997 and 2022. East Asia still maintained 34% shares. See, East Asia in 1992, East Asia 2022. They still maintain or slightly increasing. Then the other countries, the other Asian countries, they had increase in their shares. But then look at Europe. You see, this is Europe here, and Europe here. In 1992, there was only, 1997, they were importing only 15%, and guess what? It dropped. So we cannot even count on Europe anymore. That's the problem, because Europe used to be a good market. Why? And then their system was more like us. The financial system, everything is easy. Our folks can ship there. We don't, no problem at all. But now they're instead reducing their own import from us. So that's a problem that we're seeing. And that's the reason why I keep putting these trade agreements here. We need to fix these three trade agreements. The EU Comprehensive Transatlantic Agreement, which didn't go through in 2013. We have to fix this Trans-Pacific Partnership Agreement in 2016. And this NAFTA that we changed to USMCA. That one needs to change as well because it did not favor the agricultural department. It did not favor the vegetable, the specialty crop section. It favored other areas except the specialty crop, which vegetables is one of them. So that needs to be revised. We need to go back on the drawing board. Now, look at this graph here. This is export, this is import. All these top colors here, green, are the major importing countries to the U.S. This is where we send our goods, and this is where we get our goods. This is Europe, this is Canada, this is Australia. Well, look at here. Mexico alone, we export 27 billion, and then we import 47 billion, so we get a negative balance of 19 billion. Look at Canada. We export 27 billion, 28 billions, and we import 40 billion, so we have a negative of $12 billion. Look at Brazil. We export $0.8 billion, and we import $6.8 billion, so we have a negative. So you see here, most of them, except China, most of them here, we get negative. So what are we going to do? Either we increase our production so that we can sell to these people, or we find a different way of doing business. Let's look at the consumption here, the U.S. consumer food spending, 1997 to 2022. This here is the total food. It's pretty good. These lines here are when we had recession. See these gray lines? We had recession in 2001, we had it in 2008, we had it here. But then look at the food consumption is going up, and then it dropped in 2020 here where we had COVID. Everybody knows that. Then it started picking up again, which is pretty good. Let's look at the costs of input prices. You guys remember in 2021 to 22, the input prices just skyrocketed. Everybody just went. The first reason was COVID. Yeah, that's true. What about the inflationary period? I just showed you earlier. The supply chain disruption, increased energy costs, extreme weather, Russia-Ukraine war. And the last question is, what about the Israel-Hamas war? Is it going to affect us or not? Let's look at the fertilizer prices around the world. Russia and Belarus actually produce 40% of the global potash. And guess what? Russia is in war, right? USA, we import, main importers are from Russia and Belarus. That's where the US imports, from those countries. But the top producer of nitrogen is US. In 2021, US and EU imposed a sanction on import from Belarus. And that's the country where we're getting 40% of a fertilizer. We impose an sanction on them. And China also imposed a ban on their export of phosphate. So that is creating problem. When you impose those bans, what happens? Shortages. And what happens to the prices? They just skyrocket. I don't know if you can see this, but I'm going to run very fast. Look at the input prices for 2021. Fertilizer had a negative 17% and 15% here. That is 2023. But last year was up. Now, the ones that became very expensive were the insecticide, herbicide, fungicide. See here, 22%. Oops, okay. So let's look at the vegetable prices. In 2020, this is 2018 to 2020, this average. In 2021, we were below the average. In 2022, we were on top of the average. And in 2023, we started off pretty good. And by October, we had 46% drop in FOB price. Look at the cucumber. You see how volatile the price is. It's hard. You can be the best economist, but it's hard to determine what is going to happen. Look at the onion prices, same situation. Onion had good here in, this is 2022. They had a big good here, and then in 2023, look at the price drop all the way down here. You see the gap? So one year you can do good, and the next year you cannot, you don't know what is going to happen. It's always unpredictable. Sweet corn is the same thing. See how volatile the prices are, price per pound, per snap beans, same situation. These are the things that are difficult to really predict if we have to predict the prices, because they call us in the office and say, what do you think the price is going to be next year? I'm not too sure. So these are the things. Let's talk about the harvesting here. You see here, U.S. harvesting here. Here we lost to a negative 2% for area harvested for vegetables, negative 2%. I'm running fast because he just told me I have a few more minutes to go. This is our production. In our production, we had plus 3% here. I guess that 3%, 2%. And then in our per capita consumption, we also increased to 390, 391. If you remember the world average, it was lower than this one. So it means Americans are beginning to eat more vegetables than in other parts of the world. Now, let's look at the fresh vegetable demand and supply. If you see this red line are the demand, what we actually require in the United States. There's no line here because it was so small, so I decided to put the figures there. This is what we send to other folks. And this is the negative balances. In 2023, we're going to have 49 million pounds shortage of vegetables in the United States. Now, I decided to break it down so that you can see what's happening here. This is just fresh vegetable alone. Our per capita consumption is 147 pounds, which is higher than the world. This is our population, 330 million, 39 million. This is the demand. If you multiply this and this, you're going to get that 49 billion that we need in the United States, only for vegetable alone. And this is what we are producing, so we are short by 49 billion pounds. And then you can do that for vegetables, for processed vegetables, for potatoes, for snap beans. See, we are all short. And look at the total here. So despite our availability, our quality, we have the best producers, whatever, we don't have enough to feed the American population. And that's why we have to rely on foreign. I've got 2 minutes, okay. In my conclusion here, I will let you draw your own conclusion based on the figures that I showed. But vegetable growers will continue to face different challenges. Although the U.S. produces vegetables, the demand is greater than supply. Thus, huge quantities are required to meet domestic demand. There is a need for labor reforms that would address H2A programs. We have pest and disease programs. Some of our colleagues have already talked about that. We have increased input and cost of production. We have food safety issues, and then we have natural calamities, you know. Every day you hear that there's going to be a hurricane, everybody start panicking. You know, you could have a very good crop, then the next day the hurricane just comes and just crush it up. So with that, I end my presentation, and I'll take any question you might have. That's good?
Thank you. Anybody got any questions for Dr. Fonza before we go to our next speaker? Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, the reason why I started by saying that my topic is always create controversial issues is because some of the problem we have has to do with the policies, the agricultural policies from Washington. It doesn't favor most of the farmers. You know, the H2A program, for example, is too expensive. So by the time they produce, the cost of production is so high they cannot meet that cost of production. But at the same time, we cannot even produce enough to feed our own people. To be honest with you, we are very, very short. Very, very, very short. We don't have enough. Whereas we have excellent farmers who have expertise, they have all the equipment, they can double the production, but if that cost of production is so high, how are they going to do it? They cannot even expand their acreages. Yeah, the answer is yes, it's going to go up because why? There's a lot of hunger in the world. There's war in Ukraine, there's war everywhere in the world, in Israel. There's going to be shortages, so people have to produce. So even if it goes down, it's going to still go back up because people need to eat. That's one thing that you cannot avoid, eating. If you're the best basketball player, after the game, you have to look for food. If you're the best cardiologist, after you finish your operation, you have to look for food. But that is the area where we marginalize. Nobody even thinks about it. They don't give credit to the farmers. They don't give credit to the researchers. We have to hustle to get a penny to get the work done. Well, the GMO, first of all, most of the countries are shying away from it. And they were trying to start using Africa to ship those things to Africa. Now the African governments are also opening their eyes. So GMO might start going down because people are scared. They don't know what the outcome is going to be. Nobody has told us that GMO is good or it's not good. And the question is, the people in the foreign land, they say, you produce it and you don't eat it and you want to sell it to us, something must be wrong. So,
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
American demand for fresh vegetables is going up. Why are farmers still seeing the same prices they've seen 20 years ago?
Again, that's why I talked about the inconvenient truth. Part of our problem is the policy. I'll give you an example. If I'm running for governor right now, I'm going to promise that I'm going to raise minimum wage to $20, right? Then I get elected. I raise the minimum wage. Then I'm being blaming Mexico that their wage is low. Why should I be blaming somebody else for my own problem? We create the problem, and then we blame everybody else. Oh, it's your problem, it's your problem. No, it's not your problem, it's our problem. But then our American people too have to open their eyes. Say, are you going to raise the wage? How is it going to affect this? But they will elect and vote the person. Then we start crying. Our biggest problem is us. Yes, sir, you had a question for me, sir.
Yeah, how much has off-season demand, like winter demand, for example, contributed to this trade imbalance that we have?
Yes, that's a very good question. So, one, we also have what they call disadvantage, competitive advantages, because we cannot produce all the vegetables year-round. But when we can produce, we can even produce more than everybody else. Okay, so that is also a problem. We cannot produce year-round. So we should focus on the vegetables that we have competitive advantages, or the crops that we have competitive advantage, and leave the ones that we don't have competitive advantage for other folks. Any more question?
I've got one more question.
Yep.
In your per capita consumption increase projections, is that increase of fresh vegetables or is processed canned vegetables taking that increase?
Yeah, I put all of them there. Yes, the increase is, oh, you take it, that's okay. I don't know what, yeah. It's combined, so fresh vegetables, processed, the snap beans and all, no snap beans, how you call this, how you call this?
It could be either fresh or...
It could be either fresh, put all together, combined, yes. As a matter of fact, one of the slides that I didn't put there also showed that the processed vegetable, they start preferring them overseas because most of the people are not as wealthy as us, so they don't have refrigerators. So with the processed one, they can keep it longer. They don't have to refrigerate it. So the process now is beginning to gain ground.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Fonza. Up next, we have our University of Georgia Extension Vegetable Specialist, Dr. Ted McAvoy, and he will be talking about biochar and poultry litter soil amendments.
Thank you, Cale. So I'm going to start out by telling you what these amendments are and why, and then I'm going to show you some results that we've got this past year in vegetables. So what is biochar? It's essentially charcoal. So we have abundance here in Georgia from the paper mill industry, where they're from the pine tree industry, so it's a waste product. But how can it be beneficial in agriculture? Well, there's terra preta soils in the Amazon that Native Americans were added burn piles, pottery chars, and animal manures. And thousands of years later, those soils are still highly productive compared to the surrounding soils. So typically with agriculture, you know, we exhaust the soils, we're removing nutrients and building up diseases over time. And this is not just an organic thing because, you know, as Greg Fonza mentioned, for example, fertilizer costs. Nitrogen is increasing, its production is tied with oil production and the gas price. And then phosphate is mined, so there's a limited supply. So can we get sources from other sources? So the biochar, going back to it, it in itself is not really high in nutrients, but what's good about it is unlike other carbon sources, it does not degrade in the soil, such as compost would or cover crops. So it's a fixed form of carbon that's going to stay in your soil that could potentially permanently improve your water holding capacity, your nutrient holding capacity, prevent leaching, and have higher plant growth. Okay, so now to the poultry litter. So why poultry litter? So as you know, Georgia is the #1 broiler, or excuse me, our #1 ag commodity is broiler chicken production. So we have a lot of waste product. Again, what are we going to do with it? Can we apply it as a fertilizer source? Again, this is not only for organic. It could be a cheaper form, but there's issues with it. As you know, there's food safety issues in fresh produce, and there's rules in place, the 90 and 120-day rules with fresh produce that you have to apply poultry litter 90 days before harvest for above ground vegetables, and 120 days prior for produce that's in the soil. And where this gets into a problem is you have to do everything pre-plant far before. So is your nitrogen going to last you till harvest? So that's why the idea here is combining with biochar to last, to have greater retention to last through the season. So this is what we did. We had 10 treatments, different rates of biochar, and again, these are high rates. You know, these are tons per acre, 0, 5, 10, 15, 20 tons per acre. As I mentioned, this would be a once-over application, and then we had different fertilizer source, inorganic or organic. The organic's the poultry litter. The inorganic is, we did 10, 10, 10 to apply 50 pounds of nitrogen, and then the rest was 707 to get 225 pounds total. All the poultry litter that you're going to get is variable, so test it, but what we got, we sampled it, and we applied the same rate of nitrogen. And again, we wanted to see, even with conventional fertilizers, will we get better retention and better growth using biochar. You know, typically South Georgia soils are sandy, Florida soils, there's a lot of BMP measures, so this is another option as well. So it's just the picture of what everything looks like. This is my graduate student's project, Emilio, and there he is covered in biochar. You can see the different rates before incorporation. Like I said, going on pretty thick. We use buckets, but a manure spreader would be appropriate. And then you can see here the tomato crop, and we have marked which ones we're supposed to fertilize with the drip irrigation. So we could watering all the same, and then we turn off and on the valves when we were fertilizing. So it went to the appropriate place. So for the results, first pH by fertilizer source and by biochar rate. So, you know, maybe I'm just a lucky guy. So we went to a field that hadn't been used in a while. You know, if a field in Georgia isn't being used, it's typically going to have a low pH. So we had a low pH soil. The biochar has a high pH. It's around 8%. So we had an increase in pH from using the chicken litter, which was a good thing because we recommend 6.3 to 6.8 pH. Same thing with the, for fertilizer, which is the manure. Then with the different rates of biochar, we also saw an increase in pH as you increased rates of biochar. For cation exchange capacity, which is your nutrient holding capacity, again, we saw the main effects, not the combinations, that compared to normal fertilizer, the poultry litter was holding, you know, improved the soil to improve the cation exchange capacity. And we got the same, you know, increase with different rates of biochar, higher rates, higher cation exchange capacity. Carbon, so you're actively adding carbon to the soil, both with the biochar and the poultry litter. So as you see, you have a higher rate in the soil test of carbon as well, that the poultry litter has higher than conventional fertilizer, and then different rates of biochar, you're increasing the carbon. You know, this is carbon sequestration, which, you know, basically with the biochar, it's sequestered at production at the plant, but this is just spreading it out into the field. So what do we see with plant disease and plant growth? And this is an unexpected result. As you saw how we applied the biochar and poultry litter, since we're applying on top of the soil, we didn't fumigate just to make things easy for ourselves. Well, we actually got southern wilt in our tomato, southern blight. And so as you can see, we had less mortality, or more, however you want to look at it. We got less mortality in the chicken litter and more mortality in, mortality. Higher mortality with the inorganic conventional fertilizer, lower mortality in organic poultry litter. So we're seeing a suppressive soil effect with beneficial microbes potentially. Again, it's not a huge number, but significantly, again, we're getting a higher plant height of our tomato in the poultry litter. So how did this translate to yields? So again, look at the stars, which indicates significance. So the fertilizer was significant. So again, for both extra large number and weight, as well as marketable number and weight, we got higher with the organic poultry litter compared to inorganic. And again, this is a surprise for me. This was under mulch. I thought chicken litter would have yellow plants. I thought maybe they'd be increased with the biochar, but that was the main effect. Someone asked, okay, is the biochar useless at the last meeting? Well, for marketable number, I'm still getting a higher number, so it didn't hurt me. And we're hoping that as it charges, it has a beneficial effect. I think it could potentially help out more with sandier soils as well. And I think the only thing you have to be cautious of is your pH level. If you already have a good pH, I would be worried about having your pH too high. That would be the only concern using the Wakefield biochar that we tested. And so with that, I'd just like, have a little short presentation. That's what I have today. But we have another presenter that I could introduce. So I just want to thank the SARE grant for funding a graduate student project. This is my master student's project, and I'd like to acknowledge him as well. Kale, Amol wanted to present if we got time, or we keep moving. All right. Any questions?
Thank you, Dr. McAvoy. Does anybody have any questions for Dr. McAvoy?
We'll go here and there.
I was going to say, I was kind of walked in right to start. I think it was the Wakefield biochar from the bulk industry waste. Is that what was made from?
Yes, that's what it. From the paper mill, it's Wakefield in Valdosta. Yes, sir.
Biochar was made, forever.
I really don't, and so the source matters. Whether it's made from cover crops, whether it's made from hardwood, pine, etc. If there's oil accumulation. So it's just the locally sourced biochar that I've gotten, and that's what I've been testing.
I was wondering how you selected your rates for biochar application.
That's right. So Henry Sintim at the University of Georgia has been doing this in agronomic crops, and so he kind of pushed me in the right direction. And I think that's something that if somebody messes up, typically they go too low. So I think that's, we probably sounds high, but I think you need to apply high rates to see any difference. All right, one last.
I was going to say, when the Terra Preta carbon content is estimated like at 10 tons per acre, how long is it?
I'm not sure.
All right, thank you, Dr. McAvoy. Up next, we have Dr. Taylor Randall Singleton. She's our new sustainability specialist, and she's going to give a quick introduction and give you all just a general idea of her program direction. So,
Perfect. This works, right? Okay, awesome. Thank you, Cale. Thanks for that introduction. As he said, my name is Taylor Randall Singleton, and I joined UGA on July 1st as the Extension Sustainability Specialist, where my appointment is 80% extension, 20% research. Mainly, my focus will be sustainable cropping systems and specialty and agronomic crops, with a special emphasis in pesticide stewardship, which is very unique for a sustainability position, but I'm really excited to share with you how I feel that fits in moving forward. I'm thrilled to join UGA Extension. I was fortunate to complete my master's and my PhD at UGA, and I had some really awesome extension mentors throughout my program. You heard from many of them throughout this meeting over the last couple days, and so I'm really excited to join the UGA Extension team and do what I can to help you in the area of sustainability. So it's a really interesting time to be in sustainability. Sustainability is a really big buzzword right now. There's a lot of different ways that you can interpret the word sustainability. And if you start digging into it, it can get extremely complicated very quickly. Everybody looks at sustainability a little bit differently. But when I started thinking about the direction that I'd like to take my program, the definition for sustainability that really stood out to me and was important to me and how I move forward was to pursue sustainability is to understand and anticipate how farms, cropping systems, and production practices will need to change in the years to come, and how do we prepare for those changes ahead of time. So to me, sustainability is to first ensure economic feasibility for the farm, as well as flexibility and adaptability while promoting environmental soundness of our farms. But first, we have to be able to make a profit. So in order to ensure sustainability for our farms, we have to have effective and productive farmland that produces an economical crop. We have to have healthy land and water on our farms for habitat and other ecological services. And we have to support the land in order to ensure generational farms can continue to steward the land for years to come. So this is really an incredible opportunity. I feel that this position is an incredible opportunity to support this need for Georgia agriculture by working with all the other disciplines in the area of sustainability so far. Through an interdisciplinary whole farm approach that looks at sustainable cropping systems, again in specialty and agronomic crops, with that emphasis on pesticide stewardship. So how does the use of pesticides support sustainable cropping systems and healthy farmlands for generations to come? And we really need to understand the practices that do this, including both cultural, mechanical, and chemical practices. So we can't talk about sustainability without talking about some of the traditional sustainability concepts that we're all familiar with, including the use of cover crops, mitigating erosion on our farms, supporting pollinator protection and habitat on our farms, as well as protecting the natural resources that we rely on and minimizing those inputs when applicable. So really we must understand these practices that advance sustainable cropping systems for our farms. So I'd like to just go over a couple ideas really quickly in some of these general areas, beginning with the use of cover crops. Understand that this is something that's used maybe more in the agronomic space right now, but there's a tremendous opportunity to begin exploring and continue exploring the use of cover crops in our specialty cropping systems. There's many options that are available, but how do we utilize this resource on our specialty crop farms and accomplish those goals? It really depends on a lot of different factors, and I know acres vary across Georgia, and it's not a fit for everybody, but I think that there's a really neat opportunity to really begin looking at some of the questions of what species can we plant, how do we make cover crops work in our unique cropping systems that are specialty crops. Another area that's really important that we begin discussing is minimizing erosion and runoff on our farms, especially our specialty cropping systems. Again, there's a lot of different options available. Conservation tillage is more of an agronomic practice, but the use of grass waterways, the use of filter strips or prairie strips on our farms, as well as terrace and contours in specific situations, really offer the opportunity to begin mitigating some effects of negative practices on the environment, as well as begin exploring how can we use these practices in a way that supports pesticide stewardship, particularly in order to protect the ability to use those products in the years to come. There's a lot of questions, again, surrounding the use of erosion and mitigation practices, and I think this is a really neat opportunity for us to begin exploring some of those questions on our specialty crop farms. Which of these practices are actually suitable for specialty crop growers? How do we install these practices on the farm using equipment that we already have available? And then what are some creative ways that we can begin looking at how to implement these practices on the farm? And what are going to be the practices that we can use moving forward, again, to protect the ability to use pesticides when navigating some of these regulatory challenges that we face? Again, this is something that specialty crop growers, I don't get much resistance from, but the agronomic folks, we get a little bit of resistance. But the ability to implement pollinator habitat on our farms and protect our pollinator species, you all understand this really well, is critical moving forward. And so how do we evaluate the environmental and the ecological benefits of implementing these practices on the farm? And then how can we use these practices on our farm in order to, again, protect the ability to use pesticides moving forward? Because if we don't protect wildlife habitat and pollinator habitat moving forward, it will become extremely challenging to navigate the pesticide regulatory issues that we face. And so we have to begin to understand how to implement these practices on our farm in a way that continues to support the environment and also allows us to continue farming in the way that we need to. There's a lot to learn in this area. I know there's a lot of folks working in this area, but there's a lot of questions to be answered still. How do we establish these habitats on our farms in a way that's effective? How can we use the species that are available? How can we join some of these federal programs to receive financial assistance for these practices? And how do we maintain them from year to year? So there's a lot of questions to be answered here. This is an area of research I've been working in a couple years, and I'm really excited to continue working in the years to come. So when we look at overall farm sustainability and we think about some of the traditional practices that we just discussed and some of the traditional sustainability practices that you may all implement on your farms, there's a lot of different things out there. But there's one thing that I think draws all these practices together, and that is the ability to use pesticides in a practical manner. Without the ability to use pesticides in a practical manner, it becomes extremely challenging to implement some of these sustainability practices, minimize labor needs, minimize our inputs. And so the ability to use pesticides is critical, and therefore we must protect that ability moving forward. And so to preserve the ability to use pesticides, we must implement practices that support the farm and maintain environmental quality. And so we must protect the ability to utilize the pesticide product from a resistance standpoint, but we also must keep the environment in mind when we use these pesticide products, and that will allow us to navigate these regulatory challenges moving forward. Pesticide stewardship is currently, or agriculture sustainability is currently at a point that relies heavily on the ability to use pesticides, and that's from both an economical and an environmental standpoint. So if you think about some of these scenarios right here, without the ability to use pesticides, how do we even begin to protect our crop yields? How do we implement cover crops on our farms? How do we continue to produce an attractive product for the consumer if we cannot protect that product from insect and disease? And so the ability to maintain the use of pesticides is at a critical point, and we have to all be willing to do the practices that we need to do in order to protect that ability for generations to come. So we're really at a challenging time when it comes to pesticide use. I hope that you were able to attend some of the pesticide talks yesterday and learn about the challenges surrounding the Endangered Species Act and some of the challenges surrounding FIFRA right now. So from a regulatory standpoint or a pesticide resistance standpoint, we're feeling on-farm impacts today on the practical use of pesticide that could impact us for generations to come. And so we felt some of those in the agronomic crops so far, including the use of infield buffers with some of the agronomic products or the complete restriction of the ability to use certain pesticide products in certain areas. And if you were in the talk yesterday on endangered species, you learned about some of the mitigation measures that will be required moving forward in order to protect endangered species from the impacts of off-target pesticide movement, whether that be from drift or runoff. And so navigating these regulatory challenges is going to be a tremendous challenge that is really going to influence our ability to remain sustainable in the years to come. Just a reminder, I hope you were able to visit the talk yesterday, but endangered species are going to really impact the state of Georgia in regards to pesticide use, and I think that this is a tremendous opportunity for us all to work together to begin navigating these regulatory challenges through practices that help us remain sustainable economically and environmentally. So I know I don't even have to say anything, but we all know that agriculture faces tremendous challenges in the years to come, whether that be from pesticide resistance, we learned about fertilizer prices and trade markets, regulatory challenges, water use challenges, and scarcity. And we could all come up with 20 factors that really challenge our ability to remain sustainable on the family farm. And ensuring that farms can adapt and remain sustainable is a tremendous challenge. But I think that this is a really neat opportunity for us all to work together and learn from each other to begin facing these challenges. So thanks for the opportunity to give you the whirlwind idea of my plan moving forward. I'm excited to meet you all and learn about the challenges that you face on your farms remaining sustainable. I'd be happy to take any questions, or I know we're running close on time, but I'll be around for a few minutes after the talks today if you'd like to discuss some of the practices that you implement on your farm or any ideas for issues moving forward. So thank you.
Thank you, Taylor. Just to keep us moving along, we can continue discussion after this, but up next we have our new precision ag specialist for the University of Georgia and specialty crops, Dr. Luan Oliveira, and he's going to give us a quick introduction to his program.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I'm sorry we're having some technical issues here, and that's my fault because my presentation is full of videos and they do not load when I try to put in a flash drive. So if you could look at that screen for now, I'm gonna start to introduce myself. My name is Luan Oliveira. I am the new Precision Ag Extension Specialist for the University of Georgia with the Department of Horticulture, which means that I only work with specialty crops. So I have an 80%, 75% extension appointment, along with 20% research and 5% research, which means that my job is basically increase awareness and knowledge about new technologies for that. And I'm really glad that Taylor and Fonza got to present before me, because it fits a lot, like the sustainability and the economic side, what I'm going to show right now. So, right there. So if you look at that video right there, you see 100 years difference in history of agricultural technology. That's a tractor from 1910s, 1920s versus a fully autonomous planter released in 2020. So that's 100 years versus a brand new machine. That autonomous planter, it can plant autonomously 24 rows, and it go back, when it needs the seeds, it goes back to the shed, you refill it, and it goes back to plant, okay? So this is where we are right now. we call this digital agriculture. But I just wanted you to think a little bit. If those guys, 100 years ago, they had a kerosene tractor, and if they said, we're good now, we're totally fine. We have a tractor, we can plow 1 row per pass, and I think we are better than we were yesterday. Do you think that would be good? I don't think so, right? So I always bring this about challenging the status quo. We have to think about economically, about sustainability every day, because if we use those words, I call them the 7 most dangerous words in agriculture, we have always been doing this way. If those guys 100 years ago said, okay, we're okay, we don't need anything else, we were not going to be where we are right now. So I have a small story, short story here about agriculture. It's made of revolutions. It started back in like 8,000 and 5,000 before Christ. And then we call it the first agricultural revolution. And then after that, we have been increasing and increasing, and now we are in agriculture 4.0, or what people call digital agriculture. There's a difference in between precision and digital agriculture. And precision agriculture is basically managing the variability of your fields. Okay? In specialty crops, we don't have a lot of that because I hate to say that, but we don't have a lot of technologies in our fields right now. So if you look at row crops, a combine have a yield map that you can, at the end of the growing season, you can go back to your yield maps and look at high yielding and low yielding zones, and you can control better. Say, hey, right now I can plant a lower population on this area and then a higher population on the high yielding area zone. But digital agriculture is what we call the connected agriculture. Everything is connected. Everything is put together. So if you look there, I have a lot of keywords. Man, I hate that you guys are not seeing. If you want to move that side, I would really appreciate that. I'll give you like a minute or 2 minutes if you would like to do it. I'm sorry. That's completely my fault, okay? Don't blame Kale here. So if you look there, I have some keywords. I have remote sensing, I have IoT, big data, artificial intelligence, machine learning, computer vision, deep learning, and automation. All of these things, they're working together today. And I'm going to show you one example, okay? That's a planting map. Actually, from, let me see here. From hybrid down is everything that a planter can collect as of data today. So you have a lot of things to take decisions along the season. Like, for example, my planter is collecting organic matter data today. I have sensors. And I'm talking about row crops, okay? I'm not talking about vegetables here. If you look at it, I have organic matter data. I can later on in the season take that map and take decisions for my fertilizers, my organic fertilizers along the season to save my inputs, and that brings down to sustainability and economics as well. And then just to show you, that's the first map right there is an organic matter map, and the second map is the yield map. They're highly correlated. If that producer, they wanted to say, here I have more organic matter, so I'm going to focus my fertilization just on my red areas, I'm pretty sure that his yield was going to be more uniform after the season. Okay, let's go to vegetables now. As a precision ag technologist, as I mentioned, my job, I have 5 minutes, okay. My job is to bring in those technologies to the fields, talking about the hand labor, that H2A program that Fonza mentioned, or even increasing sustainability for Taylor. So that's a digital agriculture platform. It's a pretty simple platform that you fly a drone, you collect images, you place those images in an online platform, and that's going to do the job for you. So in that case, you have plant count, you have tree count, and then the software is going to measure the size of the tree crown as well. There's a cabbage field. You see like a zone right there that is not doing really good, and here you have a better zone that is doing better. So in that case, you can even measure the plants. Onions, onion grading. Fly a drone, and then you can measure bulb size of the onions. You can grade them in the field. Watermelons, you can count your watermelons before harvesting them. Okay, talking about robotics. We have a lot of robots on the market right now. And since last year, from 2022 to 2023, that number increased at 77%. So we're talking about more than 2,400 robots specialized on specialty crops on the market. And all of those robots, they are right now more focused in Europe and California. They're not coming down here to Georgia. So here you have a video of a drone, a spraying drone. That's a drone that I currently have in my program. So we're going to test it along the season right here in Georgia. That same drone, I can spread cover crops with that, or chemicals, or fertilizers. Okay, so that's a payload robot, carries up to 1,000 pounds. Is there a video like running in the background? There's some audio there, right? It's audio. Yeah. So maybe it's that video from Solin's Tech, yeah. So here, there's talking about pesticide applications. There is a robot, which is solar powered. We're going to put our hands on it really soon. It's solar powered. It can run 24/7. Runs during the night on batteries, and during the days, it runs using solar energy, and it can do spot spraying. This guy said that you can save up to 95% of your product, and we're going to test here in Georgia as well. I think this is also not good. So what do you mean? Oh, swap? Yeah. Nope, it didn't fix it. Okay, I'm just gonna move forward. So that's another robot. We also have it in my lab. That's a specialty crop sprayer, 40-gallon tank. It can spray the crops autonomously. So press a button, the robot is gonna spray the crops and come back for me to refill the tank. Artificial pollination, I'm not gonna add up on that. That's basically what we currently have that machine here. It vibrates the stems of the blueberry trees to release the grain pollen and then increases pollination. That company says that the size of the blueberry fruits are increased by 30% by doing it. So I'm looking forward for this growing season to put my hands on it and start doing some trials. And laser weeder. And I just want to talk a little bit about mechanical transplanting. So right now, if you look at that video right there, that's how onions are being planted here in Georgia. I have 1 minute. And I was in this field. I spent the day there looking at these transplants. And I found a lot of this. You see, just transplants laying on the ground or partially transplanted. Even after the cultivator passed, there are seedlings laying on the ground. And I was curious on how much time these guys spend, like, to plant a certain range. So I measured 25 different individuals. They take more or less 90 seconds to plant 15 feet, which means that if, an average person plants that in 90 seconds, it takes $39.6 to plant 1 acre. So 4 people in a 10-hour shift will plant 1 acre in a day, okay? And that increases. See, this is the morning. They're taking less time, but in the afternoon, after lunch, they take even more time than that. And taking in consideration like the 10 fastest people, they're gonna take 33 hours to plant 1 acre. One person, like if that person is really fast. But if that person is really low, it's gonna take 47 hours to plant 1 acre. So we need mechanization. And looking at those, like laying on the ground or partially transplanted seedlings, we see like there are people like I measure like 4 different persons. One person left like 10, 15, almost 15% just plants laying on the ground. So a mechanical transplanter is needed. So right now we're putting something together. It's a coral shell transplanter. We adapted that to onions, and hopefully we're gonna have some results in the next time I see you guys. And here are just some trials that I have planned for this growing season. So you see here drone-based, machinery-based, spraying-based, yield prediction, quality of fruit using drones, a lot of different stuff. So my goal here, like with you guys, is that if you have any feedback, say, hey, Luan, I need this. I need the answer for this using this technology in my field. So please reach out to me and I'll be more than glad to find a solution. Thank you. And I'm sorry, Kale.
Thank you, Dr. Olivier. Real quick before we go, we had to squeeze one more speaker in right here at the end, so just bear with us real quick. Last but not least, we have our new vegetable breeder, Dr. Amol Nankar, and he's going to come up and give a quick presentation on his program.
So this is the outline that what I wish and envision to do in this program. So this program is basically going to be on the top important crops, including sweet pepper, Vidalia onion, tomatoes, snap bean, and broccoli. However, we have mentioned these crops. There are some crops may be included, or there are some crops may not be included in the program in the end. But the way I see this program is developed, I'm not going to go into the numbers because Greg has already given us a big impact, like how is the world is going, where we stand. But just to mention that the vegetable industry is super important for us, and we need to give those potential solutions to those stakeholders. And this is the goal of this program, to find those potential solutions. And I'm not going to go into the technical part, like how I'm going to do this program and develop this program. So what I basically want to show here is this part here. These are the important crops that sweet pepper or bell pepper, onion, tomato, snap bean. And these are the main traits that I'm going to focus on. The biotic stresses, different diseases, different pests and insects, because this is the major important point in my last 3 months of interaction I'm hearing from every different stakeholder. Hey, we need a variety that has resistance for these, or we need a variety that has resistance for these. One variety has these specific resistance, but it does not have. So this is where the part of genetics is going to come, and I'm going to extensively collaborate with the pathologist, entomologist, and to find the potential host resistance to give the solutions to the growers. And then the fruit quality, as we go in the market, or even in any supermarket, we look, is it appealing to us to buy a vegetable? And that's where the fruit quality comes in. And fruit quality means, it means different for different people. And for us to do the fruit quality is mainly, can we have some of the biofortified components that are elevated into these specialty vegetables? And then the third component comes is horticultural traits, because we need sometimes early maturity, sometimes, the frost tolerance. So this is where I'm going to work into those areas, and I'm going to likely collaborate with different folks here, those who could help me to achieve those objectives. And then the mechanical harvesting. Greg mentioned a great deal on import. And why that is happening, means I'm not going into any socio-political economic issue, but I'm just going to focus onto the technical part, that how we could potentially find those specific traits, and if we could find those potential traits and bring them into these potential varieties for those crops, that could help growers to save those potential labor costs. And that could increase the sustainability and profitability of the growers. And I think that's the goal of UGA. We are here to increase the sustainability and profitability. And I'm going to do my best to address and contribute to those goals. So with that, the long-term goal is to have our own, specific Georgia-grown varieties that we can proudly say, hey, we have something special from Georgia. And basically, and then use these as an innovation program to showcase it to the industry also, so that we could work collaboratively with the industry. And this is a very interesting idea I have in mind, to develop a potential app that we could likely work on. And this is where Luan comes in picture for developing this app. And hopefully what this app would do is that with this app, we could get the feedback from growers, and we connect them with the specialist with the help of the county agents, and we provide them potential solutions. Like the example of MyIPM app was there. So something similar, we could complement those existing efforts. So with these, the major part I would like to highlight here in this talk is the vegetable breeding program is at the central point that needs to collaborate with all these different programs from phytopathology, because that's a major issue out here. And then the entomology, that's another major issue. So this phytopathology and entomology, this is the biotic stress adaptation. So I'm going to collaborate with the folks from these two different departments and try to find potential cultivars that are providing those solutions. And then vegetable production, how we can increase the potential yield while having these different cultivars. And then the fruit quality component through pre and post-harvest physiology, precision ag for mechanical harvesting, and those school tools, basically. And sustainability. Sustainability is the buzzword these days, and it really means that we need to do some solution and give some solutions in those areas. So without any further delay, I'd like to say thank you for giving me the opportunity, and I'm so happy to close up this section with the talk. And so thank you so much. And if you have any questions or any comments, please let us know. And soon I'm going to send the survey out, because this is a brand new program. And I really urge all the growers and community, please give us the feedback and input on this survey, because your inputs are going to determine the direction of this program. And therefore, this is super critically important to get those feedback so that we could identify those key priorities and include them into the upstream breeding research. So with that, thank you so much, and have a wonderful day.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Nankar. And that was our last speaker. So you can stand around and ask questions or whatnot. But other than that, though, this session is adjourned, and we thank you all for coming out today.